Unit 3, Part 2, Types of Immunity. Me, immune system, why do I have a fever? Immune system, because the infection can't survive very long above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, so I rose the temperature to kill it. Me, I also can't survive very long above 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Immune system. Chickenpox. Chickenpox is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, meaning once you get it, you are immune. You will not get it again. Cases tend to include an itchy rash and a fever, but sometimes it can be more serious or have complications. Typically, cases are milder for children than adults, so before the vaccine was invented in 1995, parents often exposed their children to the virus willingly to build up immunity. Why do you think it's better to get the vaccine than the virus? In class, we wrote, so you don't get sick. Other reasons include, no lasting side effects, no itching, nothing uncomfortable, easier to get the vaccine, automatic immunity than getting sick and getting better, which can be painful or lead to long-term effects. These are gifts in your slide, so check them out. But immunity is the body's ability to destroy pathogens before they can cause disease. We know that from the immune system part 1. Immunity can be active or passive. In this case, active immunity means you have to make your own antibodies. You have to do the work. Somehow you're exposed to the antigen and you make the antibodies to combat it. Passive immunity means somebody just gives you the antibodies pre-made. You don't have to make them yourselves. Where's Waldo? Take a moment to find Waldo. Don't give it away once you find him. Time's up. If you were super speedy, you already found Waldo. Great job. If you haven't found Waldo yet, I'm going to give you a hint. He's somewhere over here. Still stuck? We're going to point him out to you. There he is. Other classmates thought maybe this was him. We thought that could be Wanda as well. Why does this relate to science? We'll get back to that. Active immunity. You acquire active immunity when your own immune system produces antibodies against a pathogen in your body. Active immunity can result from either getting the disease or being vaccinated. What are some examples of pathogens you may be actively immune to? We listed chickenpox, flu, and cold in class. Anything you've had a vaccine against or anything you've caught but gotten better, you are actively immune to that. So, back to Waldo. How did the first time trying to find Waldo simulate active immunity? Well, if we pretend that Waldo is the pathogen, sorry Waldo, it took a little effort to look around for him. Maybe we forgot what we were looking for. It's probably been a while since we've done some Where's Waldo games. He's hidden pretty well, so we took some time to search around, and then eventually we spotted him. Passive immunity. Babies acquire passive immunity to some diseases before they're even born. Antibodies are passed from the mother's blood into the baby's blood during pregnancy. Breast milk also contains antibodies. Passive immunity is acquired when the antibodies come from an outside source. This type of immunity does not tend to last longer than a few months. Why are these examples considered passive immunity? Antibodies are passed. The baby does not have to create them. How did having someone hint you towards Waldo simulate passive immunity? Having a hint made him much easier to find. Vaccines are a shortcut to immunization. Vaccination, or immunization, is the process by which harmless antigens are put into a person's body to produce active immunity. Vaccinations are given by injection, like most shots, by mouth, such as the malaria pill you can take before you travel, or a nasal spray like the flu mist. A vaccine usually contains a weakened or killed pathogen that triggers the immune response into action. So remember, if the vaccine just contains part of the pathogen, like just the antigen, or a weak version, or even a dead version, your body can launch your immune defense with the antibodies without actually having an active version of the pathogen in your body. So there's nothing to fight, we'll just learn how to fight it. It's kind of like a practice round. If a vaccine gives you a weakened antigen, how will your body recognize it and react to it? We answered this in class, but you'll use your third line of defense, your immune response, from part 1. Your T cells will tag those antigens, and B cells will produce antibodies against it. memory cells will kick in and remember it for later. That's why if you get a vaccine against something, when you're exposed later, you know how to make the antibodies so you don't get sick. How does a vaccine work? Vaccines reduce the risk of infection by working with the body's natural defenses to safely develop immunity to a disease. A weakened or killed form of the disease is injected into the body. The body creates antibodies to fight the germs. If the actual germs ever attack the body, the antibodies return to destroy them. Passing of antibodies. Some forms of medication work by giving the patient a high concentration of antibodies to the pathogen. Example, rabies shots. If a person encounters an animal that is suspected to be rabid, they will get a series of shots that deliver a high concentration of antibodies from donated blood. How is this different from a regular vaccine? A regular vaccine contains the pathogen, and antibody shots contain the antibodies. Well, here I am after I was exposed to a bat over the summer. I went to go get my rabies shots, and it took 6 different shots. 4 of those shots were the preventative vaccine in case I developed rabies over time, and 2 of those shots were just the antibodies to give me automatic immunity in case I was infected immediately by the exposure. Since bats are such likely carriers of rabies, even if you're not sure if it bit you because they can have small painless bites, you have to go get rabies shots. So, for example, if there's a bat in your house and you wake up and find it, then you go get your rabies shots because you don't know if it bit you in the nighttime. You don't always know when a bug has bitten you. Bat bites are very similar because they're small and painless. Natural versus artificial immunity. Think back to the 4 ways immunity can be acquired. 2 ways for passive, 2 ways for active. Categorize them into natural or artificial methods below. Natural, getting sick and getting better, and breastfeeding. Both of those methods can be done without involvement from a scientist or a lab, anything like that. They can happen on their own. Artificial would be vaccines or any sort of antibody treatment through a shot or medication. Artificial because those have to be designed by a scientist in a lab. You can't just have that happen on its own. How did having someone show you where Waldo was simulate artificial immunity? Gave you a boost. It was much easier. They showed you where he was, and then you didn't have to do much work on your own. We did this Venn diagram comparing active versus passive immunity together in class. Yours might have slightly different topics on it, but active would be making your own antibodies, such as vaccines, getting sick and getting better, and it's a longer-term type of immunity. Both are types of immunity in terms of keeping you from getting sick or helping you get over illnesses much faster. And then passive, you're given the antibodies. You don't have to produce them yourself. This would be things like antibody treatments or breastfeeding. Now we're going to talk about malfunctions of the immune system. So what can go wrong? In class, we looked at these 4 images. These are allergens, meaning they're things that commonly cause people to have allergic reactions, but these are super zoomed in versions. So up top right, we have dust mites below, mold, and pollen. So not everyone is equally allergic to these things. These are not pleasant for anyone to inhale or breathe in too deeply. However, some people get severe reactions like itchy noses and watery eyes and congestion, like in the springtime, and some people get moderate reactions to these, or no reaction at all. What do all these things have in common? These are called allergens, and they cause allergies. Allergens are specific to people. However, pathogens are dangerous for everyone, so that's the main difference between an allergen and a pathogen. Immune system malfunctions. If the immune system does not work properly, we say it malfunctions. Some types include allergies, autoimmune disorders like MS, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and type 1 diabetes or psoriasis and eczema, and acquired immunodeficiency disorders like HIV or AIDS, or the response to organ transplants. Allergies. Allergies are immune responses to antigens which most people do not react to. These weak antigens are called allergens. Common allergies or allergens include pollen, nuts, dairy, shellfish, pets, etc. An allergic reaction is the immune system's response to something that's typically harmless, but your immune system acts up anyway. And it's a malfunction, meaning it's not supposed to do that, it does it anyway. Allergens are specific to people, meaning we don't all have the same level of allergies to certain things. Some people don't have any allergies, and some people have severe enough allergies that their throat begins to swell in a process called anaphylaxis in response to the allergen. This would be true of a severe allergy like a nut or shellfish allergy. When the immune system sends the body into anaphylaxis over a peanut antigen, we did it, basophil, we saved the body. Basophils are the type of white blood cell that react to allergies. Autoimmune diseases. The body does not recognize self-substances and attacks certain cells of the body. And in an autoimmune disease, the body launches an immune response against its own cells and attacks the body cells as if they were pathogens. One common example of an autoimmune disease is called multiple sclerosis. The immune system targets the insulating material that covers nerves. If you take a look at this picture, this part of the nerve is called the myelin sheath. Multiple sclerosis attacks the myelin sheath, and that results in numbness, poor coordination, and weakness. If you think about a nerve cell right here, like the charger on your computer, the charger on your computer has a protective coating on the outside, that rubberized coating. That does a few things. One, it protects the electric signals so that they can just go straight through the cord to the computer and not shock you on the way. Two, if the cord didn't have that protective coating, the electric signals would be coming into contact with everything that your charger is touching and losing its connection along the way, and also potentially causing fires because it's zapping the things it's touching. Our nervous system also uses electrical signals. So the information gets processed in the nucleus of the nerve cell here. This is called the cell body, the green part. It gets sent along this, the axon, down to these branches, which then connect to the next cell body of the next neuron. If we have a patchy myelin sheath here, that signal cannot smoothly travel, and it can be painful or not send the signal at all. Immune deficiency. If you're deficient in something, like an iron deficiency, it means your body doesn't have enough. The immune system does not function, and the body is unable to fight and survive infections by pathogens in an immune deficiency. Deficiencies can be inherited, acquired through infection, or produced as an unintended side effect of a drug. If we look at this picture, this is an image showing blood cells under a microscope. These little circles, which look gray, are red blood cells. These bigger cells are actually white blood cells that have been dyed purple so that we can see their internal structure. White blood cells are white, and they'd be very difficult to find under a microscope because they would be clear. So the purple dye helps us see the certain lobes of the nuclei and determine which type of white blood cell it is. Immune deficiencies can affect antibodies, T cells, B cells, or macrophages. And an example of an immune deficiency is AIDS. AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. The virus HIV, which stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus, causes AIDS. This virus infects and kills helper T cells. Remember, helper Ts are in charge of tagging the pathogen when they spot the antigen. If you don't have any helper Ts, you can't launch your third line of defense because the first step is to alert the body to an invader. The helper Ts then send the signal to the B cells to create antibodies to deactivate the pathogen. That also wouldn't be possible if you don't have helper T cells. You also wouldn't be able to remember for the future because the whole third line of defense is a series of events. And if we stop the series at the first step, we're not able to communicate the further steps. Why would people with AIDS be very susceptible to infections? If you have a very weak immune system, because you can't tag any pathogens at all, including a cold or a flu, you're not going to be able to fight them off. You know this from past classes, but HIV is transmitted through bodily fluids such as semen, blood, and breast milk. HIV is not typically transmitted through saliva because it is not concentrated enough. The only way to get HIV through something like kissing would be if both people have open cuts in the mouth and active cases of HIV. Immune suppression. Sometimes there's a medical reason to suppress the immune response. Suppress means intentionally weaken or quiet something down. If we are weakening the immune system, it's not going to launch its attack on pathogens based on the antigen. For example, after having an organ transplant, a person is given drugs that suppress the immune function. Why do you think this is necessary? Your body has certain antigens. Other people's bodies have different antigens. If you get an organ donation, it has the other person's antigens on it. We know that your new organ would be something useful like a kidney or a liver because you need that to function, but it still has the antigens on it, so your immune system is going to attempt to attack the organ. That's called rejecting the organ, and it's your body's natural defense against something that doesn't have your same exact DNA. So we give immune suppression drugs called immunosuppressants in order to quiet down the immune system so that it doesn't attack and reject the new organ. Your body recognizes the transplant as foreign, and the drugs are needed to keep the immune system from attacking it. The transplant recipient will need to take immunosuppressant drugs for life because your immune system's never not going to attack those antigens on the new organ. There are a few new inventions like synthetic transplants, such as a rubber heart valve or an alloy metal bone pin. If it's created synthetically, meaning it's human-made, it's not going to have antigens on its surface because it's specifically designed to be put into the body. Natural things from organisms do have antigens, so even if you use a pig valve in the heart, it has the pig's antigens on the surface. If we design something in a lab to become a transplant like a synthetic skin graft, you don't have to take immunosuppressants if you receive that as a transplant because there are no antigens on the surface. Pretty cool invention. Okay, this is the end of Unit 3, Part 2. If any parts of your notes are incomplete after this, let us know.